Welcome to our 2024 adventure through Belgium, France, and Germany. We began our journey with a drive to O'Hare Airport, leaving home around 1:30 p.m. What should have been a 3-hour drive stretched to 4, thanks to roadwork and a few accidents along the way. We boarded our flight to Brussels via Copenhagen at 7:45 p.m. About a week before departure, Jenny made the fantastic decision to book seats with extra legroom. It turned out to be a game changer. The extra space made the overnight flight far more comfortable, and we were both able to get some decent sleep. We arrived in Brussels at 3:20 p.m., not exactly well rested, but rested enough. A pleasant surprise awaited us at the car rental counter, an upgrade to a Mini Cooper Countryman SUV. This spacious and fuel-efficient vehicle was the perfect companion for our road trip. Our journey to the hotel should have been a quick 30-minute drive, but unexpected traffic turned it into a much longer ordeal. Exhausted from travel, we went to bed early, though it didn't last. Just 2 hours later, we both woke up wide-eyed and couldn't fall back asleep until 2 a.m. Adjusting to the 6-hour time difference was proving to be a challenge. Our original plan included a stop in Bruges, but we decided to skip it to keep the day more manageable. Instead, we opted for a stop at a grocery store for much-needed supplies before heading to Fort des Dunes near Dunkirk. This 19th century fort played a key role during Operation Dynamo, the daring Allied evacuation during World War II. Fort des Dunes, a 19th century fortress, played a significant role during the chaotic events of the Battle of France in 1940. As Allied troops retreated to Dunkirk, the fort became a temporary headquarters for the French 12th Motorized Infantry Division. Tragically, the fort suffered heavy damage from German air raids, resulting in numerous casualties among the French soldiers. After the Dunkirk evacuation, the fort fell into German hands. The Germans repaired the damaged structures and incorporated the fort into the Atlantic Wall fortifications. The fort served as a strategic location, housing an anti-aircraft battery and a radar installation. Despite the grim history, the fort remains a poignant reminder of the sacrifices made during World War II. After Fort des Dunes, we headed into Dunkirk itself, where a light rain began just as we arrived. We decided to visit the Operation Dynamo Museum first, waiting out the brief shower. Operation Dynamo, also known as the Miracle of Dunkirk, took place in May and June 1940. As German forces rapidly advanced, nearly 340,000 Allied soldiers, primarily British and French, were surrounded on the beaches of Dunkirk. The operation aimed to rescue these troops using a flotilla of naval ships and civilian vessels, saving them from what seemed like certain capture or destruction. When the sun re-emerged, though still quite windy, we walked out to the pier where British and French soldiers had once loaded onto ships to retreat to England. Standing there, imagining the chaos and courage of those days, was a powerful experience. One sobering aspect of this historic event struck me deeply. While hundreds of thousands of soldiers escaped, nearly 40,000, mostly French troops, remained behind to delay the German advance. Their bravery and sacrifice provided crucial cover for the evacuation. These men must have known the grim reality of their situation, yet they stood their ground to protect their fellow soldiers, fighting for a hope that one day Nazi Germany would be defeated. After settling into our Airbnb, which was perfectly situated right on the beach, we took an evening stroll along the boardwalk. The beautiful sights and the sounds of waves made for a relaxing and memorable end to the day. We set out for Etretat in the morning, despite a forecast of rain all day. Miraculously, the weather stayed dry and mostly sunny while we hiked the stunning cliffs. The rain only arrived later that evening after we had returned to our Airbnb. Even amidst the stunning beauty of the cliffs, remnants of World War II remain. Tucked into the cliffs lies a Nazi defense bunker, once a part of the formidable Atlantic Wall. Etretat, France, is a charming coastal town famous for its dramatic white chalk cliffs and natural arches, including the iconic Needle Rock Formation. Once a favorite retreat for artists like Monet and writers like Maupassant, Etretat continues to captivate visitors with its breathtaking landscapes and serene beauty. After leaving Etretat, we drove 2 hours to the beach featured in the 1962 movie The Longest Day, located between the American Omaha Beach and the British Gold Beach. While visually striking with its towering rocky cliffs, this filming location bears little resemblance to Omaha Beach, the site of one of D-Day's fiercest battles. D-Day, June 6, 1944, marked the beginning of Operation Overlord, the Allied invasion of Nazi-occupied France during World War II. It was the largest amphibious assault in history, with over 156,000 troops landing on the beaches of Normandy. Despite heavy defenses, rough seas, and significant casualties, D-Day secured a foothold in France, marking a turning point that led to the liberation of Western Europe and the Allied victory in World War II. Omaha Beach was a wide, open expanse with no cover and a shallow shoreline, forcing soldiers to wade through deep water before making a perilous run across the sand. Assigned to the U.S. 1st and 29th Infantry Divisions, the soldiers faced 12,000 German defenders, many of them seasoned combat veterans. Strong currents, delays in bombing runs, and heavily fortified defenses compounded the chaos. Many landing craft ran aground, forcing troops to wade through neck-deep water under fire. Amphibious tanks deployed offshore fared poorly, with most sinking before reaching land. Despite catastrophic losses, around 2,000 casualties, and the suspension of vehicle landings due to obstacles, destroyers provided critical fire support, and by noon, American forces began clearing paths off the beach. Over the following days, the tenuous foothold at Omaha expanded, and by June 9th, the D-Day objectives for the beach were achieved, marking a critical turning point in the Allied invasion of Normandy. On D-Day, Pointe du Hoc was the target of a daring assault by the U.S. Army's 2nd Ranger Battalion. Perched on 100-foot cliffs overlooking the English Channel between Omaha and Utah beaches, Pointe du Hoc housed German artillery capable of devastating the Allied invasion forces. The mission was to scale the cliffs using ropes, ladders, and grappling hooks, neutralize the defenders, and destroy the heavy guns. The Rangers faced intense enemy fire during their climb, but managed to reach the top. Of the original 225 men who began the assault, only about 90 were still able to fight by the time reinforcements arrived. The 172-acre Normandy American Cemetery overlooks Omaha Beach and contains 9,388 grave sites. Burial here is reserved for U.S. service members who died during the Normandy campaign and whose families chose to have them interred on foreign soil. To these, we owe the high resolve that the cause for which they died shall live. Dwight D. Eisenhower. After such a long and emotionally heavy day, a rainbow appeared, offering a beautiful and hopeful end to the day. Good morning. After a hearty breakfast, we made our way to Sainte-Mère-Église, where, in the early hours of D-Day, paratrooper John Steele found himself in a precarious situation when his parachute got caught on the church steeple. Left dangling and vulnerable, he was quickly captured but managed to escape just hours later, rejoining his division. His daring feat became a symbol of American resilience and courage. We then made our way to a very windy Utah beach. The intended landing site on D-Day was defended by 2 Nazi battalions, but strong currents pushed the landing craft about 2,000 yards south. This unexpected shift worked in the Allies' favor, as the new location had only 1 strong point instead of 2, and earlier bombings by the 9th Bomber Command had inflicted significant damage on the defenses. In addition, the strong currents had washed ashore many of the underwater obstacles. Brigadier General Theodore Roosevelt, Jr., Assistant Commander of the 4th Infantry Division and the first senior officer to land, famously declared, "We'll start the war from right here," and redirected subsequent landings. By noon, 21,000 troops had landed, with minimal losses of just 197 casualties. Roosevelt was the only general to land by sea with the first wave of troops on D-Day. At 56, he was the oldest man in the invasion, and the only one whose son, Captain Quentin Roosevelt II, also landed that day, among the first wave at Omaha Beach. Despite suffering from a heart condition and arthritis, Roosevelt insisted on leading his men ashore. One GI later reported that, seeing the general walking around, apparently unaffected by the enemy fire, even when clods of earth fell down on him, gave him the courage to get on with the job, saying, "If the general is like that, it cannot be that bad." Just over a month later, on July 12, 1944, Roosevelt passed away from a heart attack in France. He was laid to rest in the Normandy American Cemetery. We set out early the next morning for Mont Saint Michel, enjoying light traffic and an easy drive. After securing our tickets to visit the Abbey, we opted to skip the free shuttle and instead walked the 1.5 miles to the enchanting island. Despite the chilly weather and occasional showers, we spotted barefoot adventurers exploring the bay on guided tours, undeterred by the conditions. Mont Saint Michel Abbey, perched atop a rocky island in Normandy, France, is a masterpiece of medieval architecture and a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Its origins trace back to the 8th century, when the Archangel Michael is said to have appeared to Saint Aubert, the Bishop of Avranches, instructing him to build a sanctuary on the island. Over the centuries, the abbey grew into a significant pilgrimage site, with its striking Gothic spires, intricate cloisters, and fortified walls reflecting both its spiritual purpose and its role as a strategic stronghold during conflicts. Surrounded by vast tidal flats, Mont Saint Michel is accessible by land during low tide, adding to its allure. Today, it stands as a testament to faith, resilience, and artistry, drawing visitors from around the world to experience its history and awe-inspiring views. Beuzeville, France, is a beautiful little city. While waiting for our pizza from Pizza Tasty, which turned out to be very delicious due to a unique and delightfully flavored sauce, and the unexpected inclusion of a packet of hot sauce was a great touch, we strolled to a nearby church and admired its brilliantly colored stained glass windows, more vivid and striking than any I'd seen before. Good morning. After squeezing into a tiny parking spot, we set out to explore Rouen, France. The chilly 45-degree weather didn't deter us from enjoying a walk through a quaint open-air market. The market was located beside the site where Jeanne d'Arc was tragically burned at the stake, now marked by a modern church. Jeanne, also known as Joan of Arc, was a young peasant girl who claimed to have been guided by divine visions, particularly from the Archangel Michael, instructing her to lead France to victory during the 100 Years' War. Her military leadership helped inspire the French to pivotal victories, but she was captured, accused of heresy, and executed in 1431. Years later, after years of pressure by Jeanne's parents and the King of France, her conviction was overturned in a retrial ordered by the Pope, and Jeanne was ultimately canonized as a saint. After exploring Rouen and taking in many fascinating sights, we enjoyed a good meal before beginning the 3-hour drive to Bastogne, Belgium. We arrived in Bastogne on a cold, rainy morning, a fitting backdrop for the events that unfolded there nearly 80 years ago during the Battle of the Bulge, which began on December 17, 1944. This battle marked Nazi Germany's last major offensive on the Western Front, aiming to split Allied forces and capture key territory. The American troops, caught off guard, hastily dug foxholes in the frozen ground to defend against the assault. Facing one of the harshest winters in decades, with bitter cold, deep snow, and constant enemy fire, the soldiers endured unimaginable hardships. To make matters worse, overcast snow-filled days kept the U.S. Air Force from providing much-needed support. Despite the overwhelming odds, the resilience and determination of the Allied forces, particularly the 101st Airborne Division in Bastogne, prevailed. They held the line until reinforcements arrived, turning the tide of the battle and delivering a decisive blow to the German army. On the way to our Airbnb, we paused to let a shepherd and his flock pass by on their way home. For the next 2 nights, we stayed in a delightful Airbnb nestled in a small town outside Bastogne, offering lovely views of a picturesque valley. After settling in, we ventured out for a hearty supper. Good morning. Today was mostly overcast and chilly, as we spent the day exploring memorials and battlegrounds around Bastogne. One of our first stops was a memorial dedicated to Company E, made famous by the TV show Band of Brothers. During the Battle of the Bulge, Bastogne became surrounded by German forces who issued an ultimatum demanding surrender. Brigadier General Anthony McAuliffe, acting division commander of the 101st Airborne, responded with a single word: nuts. This defiant reply confused the Germans, but boosted the morale of the Allied troops. The 101st held Bastogne until reinforcements arrived, making McAuliffe's stand a symbol of determination, courage, and American grit in the war. Next, we stopped in Foy, probably most well known for what took place on January 13, 1945. When Easy Company was attacking Foy, several of the men were pinned down by a sniper that nobody could locate. Suddenly, Powers yelled, "I see him," and fired his rifle, killing the sniper. Later, when Carwood, Lipton, and Wynne found the sniper's corpse, they were shocked to see the bullet hole centered in the middle of his forehead. Wynne commented, "You know, it just doesn't pay to be shooting at Shifty when he's got a rifle." We also visited a German military cemetery, a sobering reminder of the human cost of war. It was both surprising and heartbreaking to see the young age of many of the soldiers, some as young as 17. The sheer number of unmarked graves was another poignant detail, highlighting the anonymity of those who made the ultimate sacrifice. We stopped along a quiet country road to witness the scars of war, the remnants of bomb craters etched into the landscape. Afterward, we visited the barracks where General McAuliffe famously uttered his defiant response. Now a museum showcasing a range of military vehicles, the site offered a tangible connection to the past. We concluded our day with a peaceful stroll through the picturesque village where our Airbnb was located. Early the next morning, we departed Bastogne for a 3-hour drive to Herne, Germany, to celebrate Jenny's grandpa's 93rd birthday. It was a joy to spend the day with him, Grandma, and other family members. We spent the next few nights at my mother-in-law's home. Today was a relaxed day in Ham, catching up with friends, browsing shops, admiring the tempting displays at the grocery store and at the bakery, and ending the day with a delicious homemade meal prepared by my mother-in-law. Good morning. The day started early with the sound of church bells ringing for morning mass at 6 a.m. We then drove to Paderborn, the city where I studied abroad in 2011 and where I met the most beautiful person, Jenny. In Paderborn, we met up with Michael, a friend I first met when he studied abroad at Western Michigan University in 2010. Together, we strolled through the picturesque downtown and the serene park surrounding the Pater Quell. Passing by the Old Triangle brought back incredible memories. It was there, on karaoke night, the evening before her birthday, that I first met Jenny on January 7th, 2011. I remember noticing the American accent of her friend before being introduced to Jenny when she returned from the bathroom. I asked if she'd like to do a tandem program with me where we'd meet up to practice each other's language. She agreed, as she had plans to further her studies in Ireland. We quickly became best friends, and that love and growth together has still not stopped. I'm more in love with her today than ever. Wewelsburg, a 17th century castle in Germany, was used by the Nazis as a center for SS activities under Heinrich Himmler. The castle was envisioned as a symbolic and ideological hub for the SS, reflecting their distorted vision of Aryan supremacy and Germanic mythology. It hosted training programs, ceremonies, and research into pseudo-historical and occult themes. Plans to expand it into a massive SS complex were halted by the war's progression. We packed our bags, adding a few essentials to take home before setting off. After a 1.5-hour drive, we arrived at Opa and Oma to see them one more time before heading back home, where we spent a few more lovely hours visiting with them and Jenny's brother, Marcel. From there, we headed toward Brussels. It was a wonderful time together. Thank you for following along on our adventure.